My induction into the service was Akron, Ohio. From there we bused to Columbus, Ohio, where I boarded the train for unknown places. But I wound up at Camp Swift, Texas.
Why don't you tell me your name, too? My
name is Floyd Berg.
Okay, good enough. Go ahead.
And took part of my basic training at Camp Swift, Texas. From there, we went on maneuvers to Louisiana. Good old mud and snakes. Upon finishing there, but before we finished there, I got myself into trouble. We was getting hungry, and we found a razorback pig. We killed him and had a pig roast. Well, sad part about it was I lost 1 month's pay, plus my stripe that I had treasured, and plus we had to go out and cut I don't know how many cord of wood to make up for the wood that we roasted that pig with. But that's my experience in Louisiana. From there we went to Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri. We feathered our training there, got all of our shots up to date, and boarded the train for Fort Meade, Maryland. From there, we boarded a ship, unbeknownst where we was going. We was aboard for approximately 31 days. We stopped at Cape Town, South Africa. We got 1 day off of the ship to stretch our legs, and then back on to an unknown stop. It was at night. I don't know what the name of the place was or anything, but we boarded a train. It was fired by wood. We'd go a piece, stop, load up with wood, and get a head of steam and go on till we got to Karachi, India. From there we rested up for about 3 or 4 days. We got our orders to go to Myitkyina, Burma. We boarded a plane at a little airstrip there, fly up to the airstrip outside of Myitkyina. It was being shelled, so we had to turn around and go back. They outfitted us parachutes. Said we was going back up, we'd have to jump in. Lucky enough, when we got there, they had stopped shelling the airport, and we were able to land. Thank God for that. From there, we went into the Battle of Myitkyina, which went on probably 2 months. I'm not sure in that category. And we got to where we couldn't advance any. We called in the bombers to bomb. So we took white strips of cloth from our they had to airdrop all of our supplies. We tore white sheets up, made a cross in front of our front lines. We withdrew approximately 500 yards so they could drop their bombs. Well, somebody got their signals crossed up, and they dropped their bombs exactly on the white crosses, which that was supposed to be our front lines. Scared stiff because the ground just shook like a bowl of jello. And our major got on the telephone, told them what they had done. It wasn't long, here come 3 more. And they finally got the message where we wanted them to bomb. They dropped their bombs. After the smoke cleared, we started out. Of course, they didn't completely wipe them out. So they ordered me with I was in charge of 11 men with mortars. We had 40 millimeter mortars, 80 millimeter mortars, and 1.4. We started to shell the area. Every time we'd fire a 80 millimeter, the base plate would go so far down in the mud, I had to dig it out with a mattock. Then you had to zero in on your target again. So we went to the 40 millimeter mortars, which you could fire about 15, 20 rounds before the base plate would start to sink in the mud, and then we'd have to start all over again. In the meantime, the P-47s come in with napalm bombs and dropped them. And that done the trick. That just literally scorched them. That ended the battle at Michino. We came back to what we call Camp Landis. We took about 2-3 weeks of rest. We went on the trail, headed for the Burma Road, but we encountered a battle at Bamo, which didn't last very long. I would say approximately 8 hours ended that. We completely wiped the Japanese out there. From there we started afoot to the Burma Road. We crossed some pretty steep mountains. In fact, they were so steep our pack mules, with their load on, they would fall over backwards. There was nothing we could do. It was take their load that was on their back, divide up among the troops, head on up the mountain. When we got to the Burma Road, we were 4 extra soldiers come in from the 124th Dismounted Cavalry. We took one hill that was named as Loy Kang Hill, and they took another one. I don't know what the name of that one was, which both hills overlooked the Burma Road. And I will never forget when we charged up that hill. The guys from the 124th Dismounted Cavalry, there was one guy out in front carrying a Lone Star flag going up that hill. Well, he didn't last very long. But anyway, when we got this hill secured, the Chinese were pushing from the north down the Burma Road, along with some British soldiers. And that's when they got to between the 2 hills that we had taken. We really opened fire on them. We completely annihilated them. And that ended the battle in Burma. From there on foot, we went to Lashio, where we boarded a C-47, flew the hump into Kunming, China. And that's where we set up camp. And that was the end of my combat. From there on, the United States government gave the Chinese all of our equipment, and we had to learn the Chinese how to use them. my first encounter with the Chinese was learn their language, and I couldn't do that, so they give us an interpreter. As I say, I was in the mortar section trying to learn them how to fire a mortar. Well, I picked out a target way up on a hillside. I thought it was just a pile of stones. I soon got the message of what they was trying to tell me. That's where they buried their dead. Well, that ended my tour of duty. That's it, Niles.